I'm Anisa Nawe from RT headquarters. Today, Kiev finally gets weapons. Israeli Prime Minister doesn't check his data with Mossad, and emojis are no longer racist. You're in the now. To the Czech Republic first. Media reports say at least 8 people have been killed there as a man opened fire in a restaurant. Czech TV says the attacker fired about 25 rounds while around 20 customers were inside. The man then committed suicide. Well, the mayor of the town where the incident took place described the gunman as a local resident in his 60s who had possible mental health issues. Kiev will receive foreign weapons. A Ukrainian official announced that President Poroshenko met with the United Arab Emirates delegation, and the UAE agreed to supply Kiev with arms and military hardware. Well, he added that this would be the UAE's revenge against Putin. Why would the Gulf nation try to do that? Well, the official failed to mention. So while the U.S. is still undecided, Kiev has found new ways. Or has it? In 2013, the UAE was America's biggest arms client. It purchased weapons worth $3.7 billion. That's more than India and Saudi Arabia put together. Among them are thousands of missiles of different ranges, American F-16s, and defense systems, as well as military radar. So is the UAE actually going to sell American weapons to Ukraine? I want to ask former U.S. diplomat James Jatras. He joins us in the now from Washington. James, so it's just more complicated logistics, I get. American arms coming through the UAE to Ukraine. Why make it so difficult? Why not just get the approval? Certainly lots of congressmen are pushing for it.
Well, that's a good question. I think this is an incremental development. This discussion in Washington about supplying weapons has been going on for some time. Usually that indicates that some sort of covert program is already in operation and that we already are supplying some weapons directly, but this could be simply another element of it. It's hard to believe that UAE would sell these weapons to Ukraine without a green light from Washington. So I think this is part of a build-up to maybe an overt supply of weapons to Ukraine.
How does this play into the whole hoping for peace, at least here in Europe?
I think it is directly designed to undermine it. It reminds me very much of what happened in Bosnia in 1993-94, where there were repeated European attempts to resolve that war diplomatically, and they were undermined by Washington sending weapons in against a UN arms embargo to support the Muslim side in the conflict and to undermine those European peace initiatives. I think there's a lot of worry in Washington that our European satellites are slipping the leash and that this Minsk II agreement represents the possibility of a peace settlement that is really advantageous to the anti-Kiev forces in Lugansk and Donetsk, and one way to shake that up is to pour some more weapons in there.
Well, President Poroshenko has explained why he believes these weapons are needed. Take a listen.
Again, I want to stress, this is not for helping us to provide offensive operation. This is the counter-battery communication system, some other things which help us to defend our independence, our territorial integrity, and our sovereignty.
Basically implying there that these weapons would not fall into any kind of offensive campaign in the East, I assume.
Well, let's be serious. First off, right now, Kiev's offensive capabilities are very weak. Frankly, their defensive capabilities are very weak. But the notion that there are offensive weapons, defensive weapons, is really absurd here. How you use the weapon tactically is really not related to the capability of the weapon itself. This is clearly designed at some point at a future date to give Kiev some kind of a military option that it does not currently have, and of course it has an offensive intent behind it.
Do you think we could see any kind of reaction from Europe?
That's, I think, really the wild card here, because I think the strategy that this would have from Washington would be to scare the Europeans back onto the American reservation, to face them with the prospect of a hotter and wider conflict, and to scare them into seeking refuge under Uncle Sam's coattails. It may actually have the opposite effect, however. I don't think the Germans in particular relish the notion of a military confrontation with Russia over Ukraine. So it's a really stupid and risky strategy on Washington's part, but that's been par for the course up till now.
Former U.S. diplomat James Jatras with us in the Now from Washington. Well, no wonder the U.S. hasn't openly agreed to supply Ukraine with weapons, yet they still need to work on the public. More than half of the U.S. population is against Washington's potential arms sales. That's according to a new Pew Research Center poll. In the same poll, the company also asked how Americans feel about Putin. Well, 70% don't like him, and I think I know why.
Russia is a gas station masquerading as a country.
And I don't like anything about Vladimir Putin's approach.
A fairly false narrative, one that has been manufactured by the Russians.
Putin is, in many ways, I think, delusional.
Russia's act of aggression.
Dealing with the villain Putin.
Islamic State militants are reported to have opened 2 schools in the Syrian city of Raqqa, which suggests foreign fighters joining the group is increasing and constantly. Why? Because the subjects taught, from religious education to math, are all given in English. Children between 6 and 14 are accepted, and boys study separately than girls. The leaflet promoting the school also encourages English speakers from all over the world to come and teach in Raqqa. We spoke to British Muslim commentator Mohammed Ansar.
Ultimately, children of people who have gone out to the region and children who are born in the region to English-speaking families are going to need educating. Some of the broader concerns are going to be about what they're being taught. When it comes to issues of aqidah and fiqh, issues around Islamic jurisprudence and the kind of Islamic curriculum they're going to be teaching, are they going to be teaching something from an authentic liberal tradition within Islam, or are they going to be teaching a potentially twisted ideology? These are real concerns, especially since ISIS have been condemned by Muslim scholars from all around the world.
Meanwhile, the search continues for 3 teenage girls from Britain who are suspected to have fled to Syria to join Islamic State terrorists. They were apparently groomed online after contacting jihadists via social media. One of the girls was following up to 70 extremist accounts on Twitter. Well, Mohammed says one of the reasons the group is reforming itself is to appeal to foreigners.
ISIS are trying to position themselves as something more than just a fighting force. They're trying to be seen to be controlling and delivering local services, children's services, presumably also adult services. This, I suppose, is a natural evolution for that organisation to be trying to provide this kind of thing. They want social, ethical and moral credibility in the region, and ostensibly to keep attracting foreign fighters, especially from the English-speaking world.
Coming up, from Bibi's red lines to black lines. Stay in the Now.
We are not talking the language of war, but I will only react to situations.
I have read the reports, but I'm not in a position to...
No, I will leave that to the State Department to comment on your latter point.
I don't want to say that.
Mr. Kerry, do you have any comments on the document? No comment? Thank you.
No more weasel words. When you evade a direct question, be prepared for a chase. When you throw a punch, be ready for a battle.
Freedom of speech